The woman in the wheelchair tapped the armrest 3 times. Then she turned her chin slightly to the left and slipped her fingertip under her sleeve. It was a rescue signal, a silent cry for help in a hospital corridor where no one was paying attention. Except one person saw it. A man in a worn leather jacket stopped mid-step. He was there for something routine, checking on a young rider who'd twisted his ankle. But when he saw those 3 taps, that slight turn of her chin, that hidden fingertip, something in his chest tightened. He'd seen fear before. He knew what a silent plea looked like. Their eyes locked for half a second. That was enough. But here's what made this moment different from every other time someone asks for help. The woman in the wheelchair wasn't alone with a stranger. She was sitting next to her husband, a respected lawyer. A man in an expensive suit who smiled at nurses and held doors open and made everyone around him feel comfortable. And that's exactly why she needed the signal. Because who would believe her if she just said the words out loud? The suited man's phone rang. He stepped away, his voice dropping into professional tones, his attention elsewhere. That's when the biker made a choice. He crossed the corridor and knelt beside the wheelchair. His movements were casual, unhurried, like he'd just noticed someone who needed help. "Hey," he said quietly. "You okay?" The woman's hands trembled, just slightly, just enough. "I slipped," she whispered. "At home. It was stupid." "That bruise doesn't look like a slip." Silence, the kind that holds 1,000 words. "He's coming back," she breathed. "Please, don't." "I'm not going anywhere." 2 more men appeared from the waiting area. They moved like people who spent more time on highways than in hospitals. Leather jackets worn soft with miles, boots that had walked through dust and rain and everything between. One was tall with graying temples, the other broad-shouldered with careful eyes. The first biker gave them a single look. No words needed. The suited man returned, his phone call finished, his smile back in place. He noticed the 3 strangers suddenly surrounding his wife, and his expression flickered, just for a moment, before smoothing back into concerned husband. "Everything all right here?" The tall biker straightened. "Just checking on her. She looked a little pale." "She's fine, we're about to head home." "Actually," the first biker said, still kneeling, "I think she needs medical attention. That bruise looks fresh." It wasn't his place to say it, but he said it anyway. The suited man's jaw tightened almost invisibly. She already saw a doctor. "Then she should see another one," the broad-shouldered biker added. His tone was friendly. His eyes weren't. For a moment, the corridor held its breath. The woman in the wheelchair was staring at her lap, but her hands had stopped shaking. Something in her posture had shifted, like a person who'd been holding their breath underwater and just realized they might reach the surface. The suited man checked his watch. "We don't have time for this, we have dinner plans." "Dinner can wait," the first biker said. The suited man stepped back. Not far. Just enough to make a show of giving space while keeping control of the situation. The first biker took the wheelchair woman's wrist gently. "Your pulse is racing. You should stay for observation." "That's not necessary," the suited man said, his voice still calm but with an edge now, sharp and cold. "She's coming home with me." "Hospital protocol," the tall biker said. "Just a few hours for safety." The suited man's expression finally cracked, just slightly, annoyance bleeding through the careful mask. "This is ridiculous. She's my wife." "Then you'll want her safe," the first biker said. His voice was still gentle. His stance wasn't. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the woman in the wheelchair spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "I'd like to stay." The suited man's eyes went cold, really cold. The kind of cold that makes people look away. But these 3 didn't look away. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll be back in a few hours." He leaned down, kissed his wife's forehead. To anyone watching, it looked tender, but she flinched, just barely. He noticed, and the look he gave her before he walked away promised that this wasn't over. The elevator doors closed behind him. The woman in the wheelchair started crying, silent tears that she tried to hide behind her hands. The first biker knelt again. "You're safe now, we've got you." "You don't understand," she whispered. "He controls everything. The doctors, the nurses, everyone believes him. And when I get home, "You're not going home," the tall biker said quietly. "Not to him. Not tonight. Not ever again if you don't want to." She looked up at them. 3 strangers who'd decided in the span of minutes that she mattered more than their plans, their safety, their comfort. "Who are you?" The first biker smiled. "Small but real. People who notice the signals other people miss," the broad-shouldered man crouched beside the wheelchair. "And people who don't walk away when someone needs help." "But he's powerful. He's a lawyer. He knows everyone. He'll—" "Let him try," the tall biker said, and something in his voice made it sound less like a threat and more like a promise. The woman in the wheelchair took a shaking breath. Then another. Like someone remembering how to breathe after being underwater too long. "My name is Evelyn," she whispered. "Evelyn," the first biker repeated. "We're going to need you to tell us everything. But first, we need to move you somewhere he can't find you. Somewhere safe. Can you do that?" Evelyn nodded. "Good, because here's what you need to know." The tall biker leaned in, his voice low and certain. "He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks his name and his suits and his connections make him bulletproof. He thinks you're alone." He paused. "He's wrong about all of it." The first biker's name was Jackson Mercer. The tall one with graying temples was Marcus Carter. The broad-shouldered one was Ray Navarro. They'd been riding together for 12 years. They'd seen broken bones, broken bikes, and broken promises, but they'd never seen fear quite like what was in Evelyn's eyes. They moved her to a private room under the pretense of observation. A nurse who didn't ask too many questions helped them. Jackson stood by the door. Marcus sat near the window. Ray positioned himself where he could see anyone approaching. Evelyn sat in her wheelchair, hands folded, still shaking. "Tell us about the accident," Jackson said quietly. She looked down. "I was coming home from the grocery store. It was raining. The brakes didn't work. I hit a tree." "When was this?" 3 weeks ago." "And the bruise on your temple?" Silence. "Evelyn," Marcus said gently, "we can't help you if you don't tell us the truth." She took a breath, then another, like someone deciding whether to jump off a cliff or stay where it's safe but suffocating. "The accident wasn't an accident," she whispered. The 3 men went very still. "My car was fine the day before. I just had it serviced. The mechanic said everything was perfect." Her voice cracked. "But when I got in that morning, the brakes were gone. Completely gone." "You think he tampered with them," Jackson said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn nodded. "I can't prove it. But I know. The same way I know he's been planning this for months." "Planning what?" "To get rid of me." She looked up at them, tears streaming down her face. "But not by killing me. That would be too obvious. He needed me alive but helpless, dependent, unable to fight back." Ray leaned forward. "Why?" "Because I have something he wants. My mother died 2 years ago and left me everything. A house in Daytona Beach, savings, investments. It's worth over $2 million. Marcus exchanged a glance with Jackson. "And he wants it. He's been trying to get me to sign papers for months, transfer everything to joint accounts, make him the executor of my estate. I kept refusing." She wiped her eyes. "So he made sure I couldn't refuse anymore." "The accident puts you in a wheelchair," Jackson said slowly. "Makes you look fragile, dependent on him, and suddenly everyone believes whatever he tells them." "Exactly." Evelyn's voice was bitter. "Now, when I say no, he just smiles and tells the doctors I'm confused, traumatized, not thinking clearly. And they believe him because he's Jonathan Marks, respected attorney, pillar of the community." "Jonathan Marks," Ray repeated. He pulled out his phone, typed quickly. His face darkened as he read. "This guy's got his name on half the charity boards in Daytona, sponsors youth programs, sits on the hospital's advisory committee." "That's how he controls everything," Evelyn said. "He knows everyone. He's done favors for everyone, so when he asks them to move me to a different wing or restrict my visitors or sign off on medical decisions, they don't question it." Jackson's jaw tightened. "What about your family? Friends?" I don't have much family left. My mother was the last. And my friends. She looked away. He made sure they stopped calling, told them I needed space to recover, that visitors upset me, that I'd reach out when I was ready. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But I was never allowed to be ready. Marcus stood and walked to the window. So he isolated you, made you dependent, and now he's working on getting you to sign everything over. He brings papers every day, Evelyn said, tells me it's for my own good, for our future. He's so patient, so gentle, so loving in front of everyone else. She shuddered. But when we're alone, he reminds me that no one will believe me if I try to tell them the truth, that I'm the one in the wheelchair, the one who hit a tree, the one who looks unstable and confused. And the bruise? Jackson asked. Evelyn touched her temple lightly. That happened last night. I refused to sign again. He got angry, grabbed my face and... She stopped. But it doesn't matter. He'll tell everyone I fell, that I'm clumsy in the wheelchair, that I'm still adjusting. Ray put his phone down. How long have you been married? 3 years. And when did this start? After my mother died. Before that, he was different. Or maybe I just didn't see it. But the moment that inheritance came through, everything changed. He started talking about our future, our plans, how we needed to make sure everything was secure. She laughed, but it had no humor in it. I thought he loved me. Turns out he just loved what I was worth. Jackson crouched beside her wheelchair. That signal you gave, where did you learn it? A friend taught me, years ago. She was in a bad situation and said if I ever needed help, to use it. 3 taps. Turn left. Finger under the sleeve. Evelyn looked at him. I never thought I'd need it, especially not with my own husband. You said he's coming back in a few hours, Marcus said. He always comes back. He never leaves me alone for long. He says it's because he cares. But really it's because he doesn't trust me not to talk. Jackson stood. Then we need to move fast. We need proof, evidence, something that shows what he's really doing. I have it, Evelyn said quietly. All 3 men turned to look at her. I've been recording him, on my phone. Every time he threatens me, every time he tells me what will happen if I don't sign, every time he reminds me that no one will believe me. She reached into her jacket pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a phone. I have hours of recordings, but I couldn't do anything with them because he watches me constantly, checks my phone, controls who I talk to. Jackson took the phone carefully. This changes everything. Does it? Evelyn's voice was small. He's a lawyer. He'll say I edited them, that I'm lying, that I'm mentally unstable from the accident. Maybe, Ray said, but now you're not alone. And that's what he wasn't counting on. Marcus moved from the window. We need to figure out our next move. He'll be back soon, and when he realizes you're not leaving with him, things are going to get ugly. Let them, Jackson said. His voice was cold and certain. Because here's what Jonathan Marks doesn't understand about people like us. He looked at Evelyn. We don't care about his reputation. We don't care about his connections. And we definitely don't walk away just because someone tells us to. Before Evelyn could respond, Ray's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. We've got a problem. What? Jonathan Marks just filed a petition with the hospital administration. He's claiming Evelyn is mentally incompetent and requesting an emergency psychiatric evaluation. Jackson's hands curled into fists. When? 20 minutes ago, while we were up here talking to her. Marcus swore under his breath. That means he's already making his move, Jackson finished, and if that evaluation goes through, he'll have legal authority to make all her medical decisions, including whether she stays here or goes home with him. Evelyn's face went white. If he gets me home, I'm never leaving again. He'll make sure of it. Jackson met her eyes. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. But as he said it, they all heard footsteps in the hallway. Confident. Unhurried. The sound of someone who believed he'd already won. The door opened. Jonathan Marks stood there, 2 security guards behind him, a doctor beside him, and a smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "I appreciate your concern for my wife, but visiting hours are over, and Evelyn needs her rest." Jackson didn't move from his position by Evelyn's wheelchair. Marcus stayed near the window. Ray crossed his arms and planted his feet. "With all due respect," Jackson said calmly, "your wife just told us she'd like to stay for observation. That's her choice to make." Jonathan's smile never wavered. "My wife isn't in a position to make clear decisions right now. The accident left her confused, disoriented. The doctors agree." He gestured to the man in the white coat beside him. Dr. Phillips. Jackson recognized him from the directory board downstairs, head of the psychiatric unit. "Dr. Phillips has agreed to conduct an evaluation," Jonathan continued smoothly. "Standard procedure after traumatic injury. We just want to make sure Evelyn is getting the care she needs." "I don't need an evaluation," Evelyn said. Her voice was stronger than Jackson expected. "I need you to leave." Jonathan's expression flickered, just for a second. Then the concerned husband mask slid back into place. "Darling, you're upset. These men have confused you. Let's get you home where you can rest properly." "I'm not confused," Evelyn said, "and I'm not going anywhere with you." The doctor stepped forward. "Mrs. Marks, I understand this is difficult, but your husband has expressed some concerns about your mental state. For your own safety, I think an evaluation would be beneficial." Marcus spoke up. "Does she have the right to refuse?" Dr. Phillips hesitated. "Well, technically, Jonathan cut in, his voice still pleasant but with steel underneath. "I'm her spouse, which gives me the authority to make medical decisions if she's deemed incapable of making them herself." "She seems pretty capable to me," Ray said. Jonathan finally looked directly at the three bikers. His eyes were cold now, calculating. "And who exactly are you? Family? Friends?" He paused. "Or just strangers who walked in off the street?" "We're people who care," Jackson said. "How noble." Jonathan turned to the security guards. "I'm going to need you to escort these men out. They're not authorized visitors." The guards moved forward. They looked uncomfortable but determined to do their job. Evelyn grabbed Jackson's arm. "Please don't leave me with him." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Evelyn, stop being dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. For the first time in months, I'm telling the truth and—" "Enough." Jonathan's voice cracked like a whip. Then he caught himself, smoothed his tone. "You're clearly not well. Dr. Phillips, I think we should proceed with the evaluation immediately." The doctor nodded reluctantly. "If you gentlemen would please step outside." "No," Evelyn said. "I want them to stay." "That's not appropriate," Jonathan said. "Then nothing about this is appropriate," Marcus said. "You're trying to force a psychiatric evaluation on a woman who clearly doesn't want one. That's not care, that's control." Jonathan's mask finally cracked completely. "You have no idea what you're talking about. I have been taking care of my wife for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of doctors and hospitals and watching her suffer. And you walk in here and think you understand our situation after 10 minutes? "We understand enough," Jackson said quietly. "Do you?" Jonathan stepped closer. "Do you understand that I've put my career on hold to be with her? That I've arranged the best care, the best doctors, the best everything? Do you understand what it's like to watch someone you love struggle and not be able to help them?" It was a good performance. Jackson could see how it would work on hospital staff, on friends, on anyone who didn't know better. The devoted husband at the end of his rope, the concerned partner doing everything right. But Jackson had heard the recordings on Evelyn's phone. He knew what Jonathan sounded like when the mask came off. "We understand that your wife is afraid of you," Jackson said, "and that's all we need to understand." The room went silent. Jonathan's face went blank. Then he smiled. It was the most chilling thing Jackson had seen all day. "Gentlemen," he said softly, "you're making a very serious accusation, one that could have legal consequences. I hope you're prepared to back it up." Before Jackson could respond, a woman's voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" Everyone turned. A woman in scrubs stood in the doorway. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much to be easily fooled. Her name tag read, Lena Duarte, RN. "We're handling a private medical matter," Jonathan said, his pleasant tone returning. "Nothing to concern yourself with." Lena's eyes swept the room, took in the security guards, the doctor, the three bikers standing protectively near Evelyn, and Evelyn herself, tears streaming down her face. "Mrs. Marks," Lena said, ignoring Jonathan completely. "Are you okay?" Evelyn looked at her, really looked at her, and something passed between them. The same recognition that had happened earlier with Jackson, woman to woman, survivor to survivor. "No," Evelyn whispered. "I'm not okay." Lena stepped into the room. "Then maybe everyone should take a breath and slow down. This doesn't feel like a medical emergency to me. It feels like something else entirely." "Nurse Duarte," Dr. Phillips said, "this isn't your patient." "No, but I've been working this floor for 15 years, long enough to recognize when something doesn't sit right." She looked at Jonathan, long enough to know that forcing medical procedures on unwilling patients isn't standard care, it's coercion. Jonathan's expression hardened. "I'll be filing a complaint about your conduct." "File whatever you want," Lena said. She moved to Evelyn's side. "Mrs. Marks, do you want this evaluation?" "No." "Do you feel safe with your husband?" Evelyn hesitated, then shook her head. Lena turned to Dr. Phillips. "Then I think we have a duty of care issue here. We can't release a patient who explicitly states they don't feel safe." "That's not her decision to make," Jonathan said, his voice rising. "I'm her husband. I have legal authority." "Not yet you don't," Marcus cut in. He held up his phone. "Because according to Florida law, a spouse only has medical authority if the patient is incapacitated or incompetent, and your wife just demonstrated she's neither." Jonathan stared at him. "You looked that up." "We had 20 minutes while you were filing your petition. We used the time wisely." For the first time, Jonathan looked uncertain, off balance. Jackson pressed the advantage. "Here's what's going to happen. Evelyn is going to stay here tonight for observation. Voluntary observation. Without any evaluation she doesn't consent to. You're going to go home, and tomorrow in the daylight, with proper legal counsel if she wants it, Evelyn is going to decide her next steps." "This is insane," Jonathan said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "This is fair," Lena said firmly, "and if you push this any further tonight, I will call hospital administration and report a domestic safety concern. Is that what you want?" The threat hung in the air. Jonathan looked around the room, at the bikers who weren't backing down, at Lena who'd planted herself between him and his wife, at Dr. Phillips who suddenly looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. "Fine," he said finally. "But this isn't over. Not by a long shot." He turned to Evelyn. The look he gave her was cold and empty and promised consequences. "I'll see you tomorrow, darling. We'll sort all of this out then." He walked out. The security guards followed. Dr. Phillips mumbled something about reviewing the case and disappeared quickly. The door closed. Evelyn started sobbing. Not quiet tears this time, but deep, wrenching sounds that came from somewhere broken inside. Lena knelt beside her. "It's okay, you're safe, we've got you." Jackson, Marcus, and Ray exchanged looks. They'd won this round. But Jonathan's parting words echoed in Jackson's mind. This isn't over. He was right. This was just the beginning. And men like Jonathan Marks didn't lose gracefully. They found other ways to win, quieter ways, more dangerous ways. Jackson pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway. He had calls to make, people to reach out to. Because if they were going to protect Evelyn, they needed to know exactly who they were up against. And more importantly, they needed to find out what Jonathan Marks was willing to do to get what he wanted. "Before Evelyn, tell me this. From which city and country are you watching? It amazes me how far these stories reach, and how many of us have seen people trapped by someone who looked perfect to the outside world." Jackson's phone rang at 3 a.m. "He's made his move," Marcus said without preamble. "You need to get to the hospital, now." 20 minutes later, Jackson was standing in the hospital administrator's office. Marcus and Ray were already there. So was Lena. And so was a man in an expensive suit who wasn't Jonathan Marks. "This is Mr. Patterson," the administrator said. She looked tired and uncomfortable. "He's Mr. Marks's attorney." Patterson didn't waste time. "My client has filed an emergency petition with the county court. As of 6 hours ago, Mrs. Marks has been placed under a temporary conservatorship pending a full competency hearing." Jackson's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" "It means," Patterson said, pulling out documents, "that Jonathan Marks now has legal authority to make all decisions regarding his wife's care, finances, and living arrangements, effective immediately." "That's impossible," Lena said. "You can't get a conservatorship in 6 hours." "You can when you have a judge who's a personal friend," Patterson replied. "Judge Morrison signed the order at midnight. Emergency circumstances, Mrs. Marks's erratic behavior, her refusal of medical care, her dependence on strangers rather than her devoted husband, who's been caring for her since the accident." Marcus swore under his breath. "Where's Evelyn?" Jackson demanded. The administrator looked away. "Mr. Marks collected her an hour ago. With the court order, we had no legal grounds to stop him." "You let him take her?" Lena's voice shook with fury. "We had no choice," the administrator said. "The paperwork was legitimate, signed by a judge. What were we supposed to do?" Jackson felt like he'd been punched in the gut. They'd lost her. After everything, they'd lost her. "There's more," Patterson said. He seemed to be enjoying this. "My client is filing harassment charges against the 3 of you. Restraining orders will be served within the hour. You're to stay at least 500 feet away from Mrs. Marks and Mr. Marks at all times." "This is insane," Ray said. "This is legal," Patterson corrected. "And if you violate the order, you'll be arrested. Do I make myself clear?" Jackson wanted to hit something. Instead, he forced himself to stay calm. "We have recordings, evidence that he's been threatening her, controlling her." "Recordings that were made without consent," Patterson said smoothly. "Inadmissible in court. Even if they weren't, they prove nothing except that a husband was trying to care for his traumatized wife who was making irrational decisions." He gathered his papers. "Gentlemen, Miss Duarte, stay away from the Marks family. This is your only warning." He walked out. The administrator sighed. "I'm sorry, I really am, but my hands are tied." Jackson, Marcus, Ray, and Lena stood in the parking lot as dawn broke over Daytona Beach. "We can't just leave her with him," Lena said. "We don't have a choice," Marcus replied bitterly. "If we go near her, we get arrested. Then we can't help her at all." "So what?" Ray demanded. "We just give up, let him win?" "No," Jackson said quietly. "We find another way." "What other way?" "He's got a judge in his pocket. He's got legal authority. He's got everything." Jackson pulled out his phone and stared at it. Evelyn's recordings were still there. Her voice, her fear, her truth. "There has to be something we can do," Lena said. "Some way to—" Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went white. "What is it?" Jackson asked. She showed him. A text message from an unknown number. "Thank you for trying. Don't risk yourselves for me. He's won. I'm signing the papers today. It's over." Marcus read over Jackson's shoulder. "That's not her. That's him using her phone." "We don't know that," Lena said, but her voice was uncertain. "Yes, we do," Jackson said. "Because Evelyn wouldn't give up. Not after fighting this hard." Ray leaned against his bike. "So what do? We can't get near her. We can't call her. We can't even prove she's in danger without violating a restraining order." Jackson thought about the woman in the wheelchair who'd had the courage to give a signal in a crowded hospital corridor, who'd trusted 3 strangers with her darkest truth, who'd stood up to her husband even when it terrified her. That woman wouldn't surrender, which meant she was trapped, really trapped, with a man who now had complete legal control over her life. "We need help," Jackson said finally. "The kind of help that doesn't care about restraining orders or judges or lawyers." "What kind of help is that?" Lena asked. Jackson looked at Marcus and Ray. "The kind that rides in from out of town and doesn't leave a paper trail." Marcus understood first. "You want to call the Guardians." The whole chapter, Jackson confirmed. Because if we're going to get Evelyn out of this, we need numbers. We need people Jonathan Marks has never met and can't intimidate. We need an army, Ray finished. Not an army, Jackson said. A family, the kind that doesn't abandon its own. Lena looked between them. How long will that take? 48 hours, Marcus said. Maybe less if we call in favors. That's too long, Lena said. Who knows what he'll do to her in 48 hours? Jackson's jaw tightened. Then we make sure those are the longest 48 hours of Jonathan Marks's life. We can't go near Evelyn. But we can make him understand that someone's watching, someone's waiting, and someone's coming. How? Ray asked. Jackson smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. By making sure every person Jonathan Marks knows, every colleague, every friend, every connection, starts asking questions about why he needed an emergency conservatorship, about why his wife is suddenly unreachable, about what really happened in that accident 3 weeks ago. That's dangerous, Lena warned. If he realizes what we're doing, let him realize, Jackson said, because here's what men like Jonathan Marks don't understand. They think power comes from money and connections and courtrooms, but real power comes from people who refuse to look away. He looked at each of them. Evelyn gave us a signal because she believed someone would see it, someone would care, someone would fight for her when she couldn't fight for herself. His voice was hard and certain. So that's what we're going to do, even if it takes everything we have. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll start making calls. I'll reach out to people at the hospital, Lena added, off the record, see what they remember about Jonathan's visits, about Evelyn's injuries. And I'll dig into the accident, Ray said. Find the mechanic who worked on her car, get him to talk. Jackson pulled out his phone. And I'll make sure every biker between here and Jacksonville knows that one of our own needs help. By tomorrow night, Jonathan Marks is going to realize he made a mistake. What mistake? Lena asked. Jackson's eyes were cold. Thinking that a courtroom was the only place justice happens. They came at dawn on the second day. Not loud, not dramatic, just the steady rumble of engines rolling into Daytona Beach from every direction. Jackson stood outside the clubhouse and watched them arrive. 30 bikes, 40, 50. Riders from Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, even as far as Atlanta. Men and women who dropped everything when they heard the call, because that's what the Coastal Guardians did. When one of their own asked for help, they came. No questions, no hesitation. Marcus walked up beside him. That's a lot of leather. That's a lot of witnesses, Jackson corrected. Jonathan Marks can intimidate one person, 3 people, maybe even 5. But 50? That's a different story. A woman dismounted from a bike near the back. She was tall, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen decades of road. Her name was Claire. She'd founded the Guardians back in the 90s after her daughter disappeared, and the police did nothing. She walked straight to Jackson. Tell me everything. He did. Every detail. The signal. The accident that wasn't an accident. The conservatorship. The restraining order. Evelyn trapped in her own home with a man who'd already proven he'd do anything to get what he wanted. When he finished, Claire's face was stone. So we can't go near her directly. Not without getting arrested. And he's got a judge protecting him. And half the town thinking he's a saint. Claire smiled. It was the smile of someone who'd fought these battles before and won. Then we don't go near her. We go near everything else. She turned to the assembled riders. Raised her voice so everyone could hear. Listen up. We've got a woman trapped by a man who's using the law as a weapon. He thinks he's untouchable because he's got money and connections. He thinks wrong. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Here's what we're going to do, Claire continued. We're going to be everywhere he is. Not threatening, not violent, just present. When he goes to work, we'll be in the parking lot. When he goes to lunch, we'll be at the restaurant. When he goes to court, we'll fill the gallery. Everywhere he looks, he'll see us, reminding him that someone's watching. That's legal harassment, someone called out. No, Claire said. That's public space. We're not breaking any laws. We're just exercising our right to exist in the same places he does. And if that makes him uncomfortable, well, that's not our problem. Ray stepped forward. I found the mechanic who serviced Evelyn's car, guy named Torres. He's willing to testify that the brakes were perfect 2 days before the accident, but he's scared. Marks has connections and Torres has a family to feed. Then we make sure Torres knows he's protected, Claire said. Assign 2 riders to his shop, 24/7. Nobody touches him, nobody threatens him, and when the time comes, he gives his testimony without fear. Lena emerged from the clubhouse. I talked to 3 nurses who worked Evelyn's case. They all noticed things that didn't add up, bruises that didn't match her story, the way she flinched around Jonathan, but they were told to mind their own business by administration. Get their statements, Claire ordered. Record them if you have to. We're building a case that doesn't need a courtroom. What kind of case? Jackson asked. The kind that happens in the court of public opinion, Claire said. Jonathan Marks has spent years building a reputation. We're going to dismantle it. Piece by piece, question by question, until everyone in this town is asking the same thing. What kind of man needs emergency legal control over his own wife? A younger rider raised his hand. What about Evelyn? How do we know she's okay? Jackson's jaw tightened. We don't. That's the worst part. We can't call, can't text, can't go near the house. But I can, Lena said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. The restraining order is against you 3, not me. And I'm a nurse. I can make a welfare check. Hospital protocol for patients discharged under questionable circumstances. He'll refuse to let you in, Marcus said. Then I'll note that in my report, and I'll file it with Adult Protective Services. And suddenly there's an official record of him blocking medical access to his supposedly beloved wife. Claire nodded approvingly. That's good, but we need more. We need to find his pressure points, the places where his perfect reputation starts to crack. Ray pulled out his phone. I did some digging. Jonathan's on the board of 3 charities, sponsors 2 youth programs, and he's up for partnership at his law firm next month. So his reputation isn't just personal, Jackson said slowly. It's professional. If those organizations start questioning his character, they might start asking questions he doesn't want to answer, Claire finished. Ray, get me a list of every board member, every colleague, every professional connection he has. We're going to have very polite, very concerned conversations with all of them. About what? Someone asked. About how we're worried, Claire said. About how we heard Jonathan's wife had a terrible accident. About how we hope she's recovering well. About how it must be so hard for him. And then we mentioned casually that we tried to visit her but couldn't seem to reach her. Isn't that strange? Doesn't he usually encourage visitors? Jackson understood. Plant doubt. Make people wonder. Make people pay attention, Claire corrected, because the thing about men like Jonathan Marks, they only have power when people aren't looking. The moment everyone starts watching, their control slips. Marcus checked his watch. So when do we start? Now, Claire said. Jackson, you and I are going to Jonathan's law office, just to have a conversation. Ray, take a team to the courthouse. Pull every public record on the Marks family. Marriage license, property records, financial filings. Marcus, you're on neighborhood detail. Talk to the neighbors. See what they've seen, what they've heard. And me? Lena asked. You're going to make that welfare check, Claire said. And you're going to make sure Evelyn knows, somehow, that she's not alone, that we're not giving up, that help is coming. Lena nodded, but her face was pale. What if he won't let me see her? Then you make noise, Claire said simply. Loud noise. The kind that makes neighbors open their windows and ask questions. The riders began moving, organizing, preparing. The parking lot filled with the sound of engines and voices and purpose. Jackson watched them and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 days. Hope. Not the fragile kind that Jonathan had crushed in the hospital, but the solid kind that comes from knowing you're not fighting alone. Claire put a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing calling us. I just hope it's enough, Jackson said. It will be, Claire said, because here's what you need to understand about people like us. We don't have judges in our pockets. We don't have fancy degrees or million-dollar homes. But we have something Jonathan Marks will never have. What's that? She gestured to the 50 riders preparing to go to war for a woman most of them had never met. Each other. And if you're watching this, and you believe that no one should face their nightmare alone, then subscribe right now, because this story isn't over, and neither is the fight for people who need someone to stand beside them when everything else falls apart. Lena knocked on the door at 10 in the morning. She'd chosen the time carefully, late enough that neighbors would be home, early enough that Jonathan would still be pretending everything was normal. The door opened. Jonathan stood there in casual clothes, coffee cup in hand, the picture of a relaxed husband on a day off. His smile froze when he saw her. "Miss Duarte, what a surprise." "I'm here to conduct a welfare check on Mrs. Marks," Lena said clearly, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "Hospital protocol for recent patients." "That's not necessary. My wife is resting." "Then it'll only take a moment to confirm she's well." Jonathan's grip tightened on the doorframe. "This is harassment." "This is standard medical procedure," Lena replied. She pulled out her phone. "If you refuse access, I'm required to file a report with Adult Protective Services. I'm sure you understand." They stared at each other. Behind Jonathan, Lena could hear movement. A wheelchair. "Jonathan," Evelyn's voice. Weak but present. "Who is it?" Jonathan's jaw clenched. He knew he was trapped. Refusing now would raise questions, create the exact attention he'd been trying to avoid. "Just a nurse from the hospital, darling, nothing important." "I'd like to see her," Evelyn called back. Jonathan's eyes went cold, but he stepped aside. Lena walked in. The house was beautiful, expensive furniture, art on the walls, everything perfect and controlled. Evelyn sat in her wheelchair near the window. She looked smaller than she had at the hospital, more fragile, like something inside her had broken in the past 2 days. But when she saw Lena, something flickered in her eyes. Hope. Relief. "Mrs. Marks," Lena said professionally, "I'm here to check on your recovery. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," Evelyn said. The words came automatically, years of practice. "May I examine you? Just a quick check of vitals." Jonathan moved closer. "That's really not—" "It's okay," Evelyn interrupted. "I don't mind." Lena knelt beside the wheelchair, pulled out her equipment, took Evelyn's pulse, checked her temperature, looked at the bruise on her temple that was now turning yellow. And while she worked, she whispered, so quietly that Jonathan couldn't hear from where he stood, "They haven't given up. They're all here, 50 of them, watching, waiting. You're not alone." Evelyn's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. "Everything looks normal," Lena announced loudly. Then, quieter, "Blink twice if you're in immediate danger." Evelyn's eyes stayed open. Once, twice. Normal blinks, not the signal. Relief flooded through Lena. "Your vitals are stable. But I'd like to schedule a follow-up appointment. With your permission, of course." "That won't be necessary," Jonathan said firmly. "Actually," Evelyn said softly, "I think it would be good, just to make sure I'm healing properly." Jonathan's face darkened, but before he could respond, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression changed. Confusion, then concern. "Excuse me," he said. He walked into the other room. Lena leaned closer. "Whatever he's planning, we're one step ahead. Hold on just a little longer." Evelyn grabbed her hand. "The papers. He wants me to sign today. He says if I don't, he'll—" She stopped. "He didn't say what he'd do, but I know." "Don't sign anything," Lena whispered urgently. "No matter what he says, no matter what he threatens, you hear me? Nothing." Jonathan returned. His face was tight with barely controlled anger. "I need you to leave. Now." "Of course," Lena said. She stood. "Mrs. Marks, someone will be in touch about that follow-up." She walked to the door, turned back. "Oh, and Mr. Marks, you should know that there are quite a few people in town asking about you, about the conservatorship, about the accident. Funny how news travels in a small community." Jonathan went very still. What are you talking about? Nothing specific, Lena said innocently. Just people being concerned. Neighborly interest. You know how it is. She left before he could respond. Outside, 2 bikes were parked across the street. Ray and another rider. Visible, deliberate. Jonathan saw them through the window. Lena got in her car and drove 3 blocks. Parked at a diner where Jackson, Marcus and Claire were waiting. She's okay, Lena said as she sat down. Scared, but okay. He's trying to get her to sign papers today. He's panicking, Claire observed. That's good. Panicked men make mistakes. Jackson's phone buzzed. He looked at it and smiled. Actually smiled. Torres just called. He's willing to testify, and he brought receipts. Service records proving Evelyn's car was in perfect condition 2 days before the accident. That's not enough for court, Marcus said. No, Claire agreed, but it's enough for the court of public opinion. Ray, how'd it go at the law firm? 3 partners have asked Jonathan to take a leave of absence, pending resolution of his personal matters. Apparently they've been getting calls, questions about his judgment. His ethics. From who? Lena asked. Ray grinned. Anonymous concerned citizens. Claire's phone rang. She answered, listened, then hung up with a satisfied expression. Judge Morrison just recused himself from the Marks case. Conflict of interest. The conservatorship hearing has been rescheduled with a different judge, one who doesn't play golf with Jonathan every Sunday. Jackson leaned back. He's losing control. He's losing everything, Claire corrected. His reputation, his firm, his legal protection, all in 48 hours. But here's the thing about cornered animals, they're dangerous. So what do we do? Lena asked. We end this, Claire said. Tonight, before he does something desperate. How? Marcus asked. Claire pulled out her phone. By giving him a choice. Either he releases Evelyn voluntarily, drops the conservatorship, and disappears from her life. Or we release Torres's testimony, the nurse's statements, and every piece of evidence we've gathered to every news outlet, every social media platform, and every professional organization he's connected to. That's blackmail, Jackson said. No, Claire said. That's leverage. Blackmail is when you threaten to release something that isn't true. This is all true. We're just giving him the option to walk away with some dignity intact. He'll never agree, Lena said. He will, Claire said with certainty, because men like Jonathan Marks care about one thing more than control. They care about image, and right now, his image is crumbling. We're just offering him a way to salvage the pieces. Jackson looked at Marcus and Ray. We need to do this right. No threats, no violence, just the facts. And 50 witnesses, Marcus added. Where? Ray asked. Claire smiled. Somewhere public. Somewhere he can't claim we're intimidating him. Somewhere everyone can see that we're just people having a conversation. The pier, Jackson said. Tomorrow at sunset. Public space. Witnesses everywhere. He shows up, we talk. He doesn't show up, we release everything. And if he tries something? Lena asked. Jackson's expression was hard. Then he learns that courtrooms aren't the only place where justice happens. Claire stood. Make the call. Tell him where and when, and tell him to come alone. Will he? Marcus asked. He will, Claire said, because deep down he knows it's over. He's just trying to figure out how to lose with the least amount of damage. Jackson pulled out his phone, dialed Jonathan's number. It rang 3 times. What do you want? Jonathan's voice was tight, strained. I want to talk, Jackson said calmly. Tomorrow, sunset, the pier. Just you and me. And if I don't come, then by Monday morning everyone you've ever worked with, worked for, or worked around will know exactly who you really are. Silence. Long enough that Jackson thought he'd hung up. Then, I'll be there. The line went dead. Jonathan arrived at the pier alone. Jackson stood waiting. Behind him, spread along the boardwalk like sentinels, were the guardians. Not threatening, just present. Witnesses to whatever happened next. Jonathan looked older, tired. The Polish was gone. Just a man who'd finally run out of moves. You've destroyed everything, he said quietly. No, Jackson replied. You did that yourself. We just made sure people saw it. Jonathan stared out at the ocean. "What do you want?" "The conservatorship dropped today. Evelyn gets full control of her life, her money, her choices. You sign the dissolution papers and you walk away. Forever. And if I do, then what we know stays between us. You leave Daytona. Start over somewhere else. We don't follow you. We don't destroy you. We just let you go." Jonathan laughed. It was bitter and broken. "You think that's mercy? I think it's more than you gave her." Silence. The waves crashed below them. Families walked past, eating ice cream. Normal life happening around this quiet moment of reckoning. "I loved her," Jonathan said. "At first, I really did." "Then you should have kept loving her instead of what she was worth." Jonathan turned. His eyes were empty. "I'll sign the papers, but I want her to know something." "What?" "That I'm not the monster you think I am. That I never meant—" He stopped. "Never mind. It doesn't matter what I meant. Only what I did." He walked away. No goodbye. No final threat. Just a man who'd lost everything that mattered by trying to control the one thing he should have cherished. 3 days later, Evelyn signed the dissolution papers in a lawyer's office. Her own lawyer. One Claire had helped her find. Jackson, Marcus, Ray, and Lena were there, not as guards, just as friends. When it was done, Evelyn sat back in her chair. She was standing now. Physical therapy was working. The wheelchair was temporary, just like they'd suspected. Just like Jonathan had wanted everyone to believe would be permanent. "What happens now?" she asked. "Whatever you want," Jackson said. "That's the point." 2 months passed. Evelyn moved into a small house near the beach. The inheritance was hers again. Jonathan was gone, moved to Colorado according to someone who'd heard from someone else. The guardians checked on her regularly, not because they had to, because they wanted to. On a Saturday morning, Jackson stopped by, found her on the porch sewing. "Hey," he said. "Hey, yourself." She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. "You doing okay?" "I'm doing better than okay," she said. "I'm doing free." Jackson sat on the steps, watched the waves. "You ever think about that day in the hospital?" "Every day," Evelyn said. "I think about how close I came to giving up, how close I came to believing him when he said no one would care." "But you didn't give up." "No," she agreed. "I gave a signal, 3 taps, a turn of the head, a fingertip under my sleeve, the smallest cry for help I could manage. And someone saw it." "Someone saw it," she repeated softly. "That's the part that still amazes me." In a crowded hospital with everyone busy and distracted, someone stopped, someone paid attention, someone cared. Jackson stood. "That's what we do." "No," Evelyn said. "That's who you are." He started to leave. She called after him. "Jackson, thank you for everything, for not walking away." "You did the hard part," he said. "You asked for help. That takes more courage than most people will ever know." He rode away. Left her there in the sunlight, sewing pieces of fabric into something whole. Because that's what healing looks like. Not dramatic, not perfect, just small moments of peace stitched together one day at a time. And if this story touched you, don't leave quietly. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because stories like Evelyn's happen everywhere, and the more of us who pay attention, who notice the signals, who refuse to look away, the more people get a chance to sit on their porch in the sunlight and finally breathe. You are not alone, none of us are, that's the whole point.